Greetings, gentlemen. Shalom Aleichem Rabotai, Rabbi Kaba, Kalman Akiva ben Eliezer, bringing you more wisdom for modern men from the ancient Jewish Talmud. If you like anything you hear, please like the video, please subscribe. We have more great content coming up. Today we're learning Ketuvot Daf Gimel, the second page in Masechet Ketuvot, in the book in the Talmud about marriage contracts. On the second page, we actually mention a divorce document given on condition. A man handed his wife a get, a writ of divorce, and said, this is effective if I don't come back within 12 months. Now, why would a man do that? Maybe he's leaving on a business trip, or he's a soldier going to war. They had very poor communications 2,000 years ago, even 1,000 years ago. A man might leave for a while, and his wife may not ever hear what happened to him if he, God forbid, is killed and unable to come home, and she doesn't know about it. She cannot get remarried unless she has a valid divorce document. So in this case, he gave her this get on condition, but the Torah on a biblical level does allow for excuses if the man was trying to get back and ran into an unavoidable, unforeseen problem. For instance, he got the flu the week before he was supposed to come home to his wife. In that case, on a biblical level, the get does not work. They are not divorced. But the rabbis decreed, and Rava, an ancient sage in Babylon about 1,800 years ago, he explains that we say the get is always valid if he did not show up, no matter what his excuse is, because we're worried about two kinds of women on the opposite end of the spectrum. The tsnuyot, the very modest and passive, and the prutzot, the very aggressive and the less concerned about consequences. Now, the tsnuyot might assume that her husband is held up by something beyond his control, and therefore the divorce is not valid, and she's going to sit there waiting for him to come home, and she'll never get remarried, even though the husband might intend to never come home. Now, the prutzot, on the other end of the spectrum, a woman might even hear that her husband was trying to come back, but due to unavoidable problems, couldn't make it back, and she might, holding the divorce document, say, hey, this is valid, it's been 12 months, he's not here. She might go and get remarried, and it comes out she's living in sin. Now, the Gemara also brings a situation that happened more than once in Israel during Greek occupation, and then later during Roman occupation. The invading soldiers had a law that they decreed against the Jews. In Latin, it's called jus prima nocta, the law of the first night. And this is night with an N. This allowed the ruling officials, the governor, the mayor, the general, whoever they were, to come to a wedding and abduct the bride and violate her. This was their legal right as the occupying power of the land, and this law was designed as a sort of terrorism and intimidation against the Jews. So because of this, our sages allowed the Jews to move their wedding night from Wednesday, which was the customary night for virgin to get married, to a different night to avoid being abducted by the foreign troops and violated, God forbid. Now the Gemara asks, why didn't our sages teach these girls that if they remained completely passive and were not complicit, were not encouraging this act in any way, then they'd be permitted to go back to their husbands? A woman who's completely passive and not taking part in an act is not considered an adulteress. So the Gemara explains we're worried again about two opposite kinds of women. The tsnuyot, the very modest, and in that case they might fight back and resist the foreign troops and get murdered for resisting their violation. And on the other end of the spectrum are the prutzot, the more aggressive and less concerned about consequences. And that kind of woman might actually participate, might actually encourage some sort of relationship with these invading people, but then go back to her husband claiming it was totally violation and that she was an innocent victim and had no part in it, and he will be none the wiser. Now, it's very interesting that in these areas of law, we do consider the opposite extremes of the spectrum, because usually in Jewish law, we make edicts for the average case, for the normal case, not for abnormal, off-the-wall cases. However, in these areas, you understand it's a highly emotional issue. It's her marriage or divorce. It's a woman trying to avoid being violated by foreign soldiers. It's a very emotional issue. So when something very emotional comes up, you're going to see more extreme ends of the spectrum of human behavior. Now, gentlemen, you can use this in your own life to think about what you're doing and what the emotional impact is. If you have a business and you're going to advertise, and it's a hot button issue that you're linking your ad to, something emotional, you're going to get extreme reactions. You should expect that. If you say something that's a little out of the ordinary, you might get a more extreme reaction. Now, that might be good in your situation or it might not be. You have to really know what's going on, have your finger on the pulse of what's around you before you act in a way that can arouse these intense emotions. Have a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and be well. God bless.